not be suspended until 2017 at the earliest. So the question I ask you, Skip Bayless,
yes,
will Brady play in the first 4 games this coming season?
Stephen A. Smith, I still believe Tom Brady will be eligible to play the first 4 games. But I am the first to admit to you here today, this is becoming so complex legally, as Molly just tried to explain. It is way, way over my head at this point. In fact, I'm getting to the point where as I read the stories, my eyes cross. I can't digest, I can't compute. I frankly get bored to tears trying to read the stories. But suffice it to say, there are still 2 or 3 other legal avenues that Brady and his team can pursue, if nothing else, for delay tactics. I still think they have a chance to win this going forward. It's going to be extremely costly in terms of money and time, but Tom Brady has fought this far, and I'm going to remind you, we now have 4 judges' rulings, 1 the first time and then 3 the second time. But if you take them in totality, you have 2 who have ruled publicly for Tom Brady and 2 against. So I still think he has a case. I still think he can fight the City Hall, the unbeatable City Hall that is the National Football League. If you want to debate how much money the NFL Players Association should continue to spend, or you could say waste on this process, you're free to do so. I'm to the point where I would hope that Tom Brady would be dedicating some of his own funds, the funds of his and his wife's, because they do have their own funds, toward this process. I don't know how that all falls out or what the NFLPA's responsibilities remain here. But I do think Tom Brady has fought this far, and you can just see by his character, he will continue to fight this to the quote-unquote legal death. I do think he'll get this delayed, and I do think he'll play the first 4 games.
You're probably right. He'll probably get it delayed. He may lose in the end, but he's going to delay it. He's going to force the union to spend more of its money. I've gotten to a point where I think it's incumbent upon the players to speak up and say, "Damn, when's enough?"
Yeah,
enough?
I'm not because I'm not opposed to that. I got you. I hear you.
Because, I mean, all the money that is costing them millions. And this is millions of dollars that could be utilized to help a bevy of other players with a bevy of other issues.
Great point.
This is about the integrity, the league's, not the integrity, but the league's power. The league is not trying to give it up. And the Players Association, no matter how right it may be, in the end, what it comes down to is that you're fighting for the courts to give you something that you surrendered during collective bargaining negotiations. That's what this comes down to. They can slice it any way they want to. And Tom Brady, again, this is about him not wanting to miss any games. It can't be about his image, Skip, because people at this point are either for him or against him. Nothing that happens through all this minutia, nothing that has happened is going to change anybody's thought process. There are those that believe this is much ado about nothing, and that the NFL completely overreached and were excessive. And there are those who believe that Tom Brady is guilty of sin. It's not going to change it, and he's smart enough to know that. So this is about him fighting to make sure that he doesn't get to miss any games whatsoever. And all I'm saying is that it's got to a point where it's elevated beyond ridiculousness, and I'm going to put that on Tom Brady. Because for the league, it's not about Tom Brady anymore. For the league, it's about their power and making sure they don't allow a precedent to be set where others can follow Tom Brady and challenge their authority. That's what it's about with them. With Tom Brady, it's all about Tom Brady. And I agree with my man Mark May, extraordinary college football analyst for us, who came on the show and spoke about this weeks ago, where he said, put on your big boy pants and just own up. Now, you might not need to own up to the guilt in it all, because if you're innocent, why should you admit that you're guilty? I'm with you on that, Skip. But it does come a point in time where you need to think beyond yourself. And there's a whole bevy of players. Now, the union has put forth the good fight. And it's speculated that in excess of $7 million have been spent on Tom Brady and this whole Deflategate fiasco alone. Yep. The NFL has deep pockets, rife with about 32 billionaires. But in the case of Tom Brady and the Players Association, their pockets are not nearly as deep. All you're doing at this point is making sure that lawyers get paid, because you're not going to change public perception one way or the other. And you can delay it. And if you end up pulling it off and you don't get suspended, God bless you. But it will be at a hefty, hefty price to a body of players. So I think it's got to the point where the players need to step up and say, look, man, we side with you. We agree with you. Roger Goodell ain't worth a damn. He did this, he did this, he did. Y'all can say all of that stuff that they say. But in the end, don't let your personal emotions cost you millions in the coffers when all you've got to do is eat this and take the suspension, when chances are you'll come back and be in the playoffs anyway. It's gotten to that point. Somebody needs to tell
Two
them.
last quick points. You distill this case down to it's now about the NFL's power that it won through collective bargaining. Yet I remind you, those 3 judges who ruled in the Circuit Court of Appeals, they all dealt with the merits of Deflategate in their arguments, that their conclusion.
No. I'm talking about what the NFL's purpose is. In other words, this is the Deflategate incident. So the judges have to debate the Ted Wells investigation, the authenticity of it, the validity of it, et cetera, et cetera. But the agenda is what I'm speaking of.
Got it.
The agenda of the NFL is to protect and hold their power.
Final point, and this is just me from a distance, but it did surprise me a little bit, to your point about how so many people think that Tom Brady is guilty of sin and they're not going to change their opinion. There must not be enough of those people in the eyes of, what's the new commercial that Brady's doing? I don't even know what it is, for a mattress company, right, that he's promoting now. I think it's a mattress company. But my point is, he has a new national commercial that he's doing. So it's like that company thinks that Tom Brady's still pretty popular, right?
Well, first of all, I think that makes Tom Brady look even more petty. You're making my point. My point to you, Skip, is this. Just because you think he's not innocent doesn't mean that that it warrants all of this. I don't care whether Tom Brady has something to do with the footballs being deflated or not. It doesn't take away from his greatness one bit. It doesn't make me look at him like his integrity is diminished in my eyes by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's a great ambassador for the game of football. I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. He's clearly a winner, one of the greatest ever, and there's nothing that this whole Deflategate fiasco has insinuated that, to me, sullies his name or his brand in any way. But because his popularity is still what it is, makes it even less sense why he's going through all of this at the expense of the body of NFL players.
I feel like I'm having deja vu here, but if he serves his suspension, then he would be eligible to return week 5, and that would be at Cleveland. And it's Simmons Beauty Rest mattresses. They're inflated. Don't worry, they're not deflated. They're not deflated mattresses.
But it's a national campaign, so they must think Tom's still pretty credible, right?
Yes. And speaking of Simmons, let's talk about the NBA draft lottery last night. So obviously, the Sixers won it, and a lot of people think that LSU freshman Ben Simmons will go first overall. Are the guys on board with this? We'll discuss after the break.